echoes beneath the ice. They laughed at me. I remember the sound of it so clearly, the way their voices twisted together like the howling wind outside our old house. "You'll lose your mind, Cassie," my father warned, his eyes filled with a mix of concern and disdain. "This obsession of yours, it's unhealthy. What's next? You'll disgrace the family with your ridiculous theories about voices in the ice?" It was my mother's laughter that cut the deepest. "Haunted glaciers? Really? You're delusional," she scoffed, dismissing my passion like a bad smell in the air. In that moment, I felt as though I were standing naked before them, stripped of my dignity, my dreams reduced to a punchline. But it was more than just laughter that echoed in my ears. It was the churning of something ancient and terrible beneath the ice, a resonance that beckoned me into the depths of the unknown. Years later, as I stood before the frosted peaks of the Arctic, the cold bit into my skin, reminding me of those distant voices I had chased through the years. My obsession had transformed into something profound, a relentless pursuit of subglacial acoustic phenomena that others refused to acknowledge. The realm of frozen whispers had become my sanctuary, a dark world that few dared to explore. I'd survived brutal winters alone, weathered the scorn of my peers, and eventually emerged as a recognized expert in the field. I uncovered secrets that made the world tremble, hidden layers of sound that spoke of a sentient presence lying dormant beneath the glaciers, and I had the evidence to prove it. But recognition came at a price. The horrors I unearthed had a way of creeping into my soul, leaving me with a chilling knowledge that gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I became a warning, a figure cloaked in the shadows of dread. I returned home one fateful afternoon, the sun casting long shadows over the familiar landscape. The old house stood unchanged, yet it felt like a relic of a life I no longer belonged to. My family gathered in the living room, their faces a mixture of pride, disbelief, and something darker, a flicker of fear. "I'm home," I said, the words tasting foreign on my tongue. My father looked at me with the eyes of a man who had once dismissed my dreams, now filled with a hesitant respect. "You've done well for yourself, Cassie," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. But the moment of reconciliation shattered the instant I began to speak of my discoveries. "The ice sings, Dad. It's alive with resonance that humans can't comprehend. I've recorded sounds, whispers of an ancient intelligence. It's terrifying, but beautiful." "What are you talking about?" my mother interjected, her voice tinged with an edge of disbelief. "This isn't some fairy tale." But the air thickened with a weight that only I could sense. I had learned to listen to the ice, to decipher its secrets, and now, as I stood in the room filled with echoes of my childhood, I felt it thrum beneath us, a low, rumbling resonance that vibrated through the floorboards, a voice calling out from the depths. I closed my eyes, focusing on the sound. "Listen," I urged, an urgency creeping into my voice. "You don't understand. It's warning us." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room grew cold. A deep, primal sound reverberated through the walls, a low hum that sent shivers racing down my spine. The voices, the ones I had always heard, began to rise, swirling around us in a cacophony of whispers. The laughter of my family faded into horrified gasps. Their expressions shifted from mockery to disbelief to sheer terror. "What is this?" my father shouted, his bravado crumbling. "What have you brought back with you?" I opened my eyes, and there in the corner of the room, shadows twisted and writhed. The air thickened with a darkness that felt alive, as if the very essence of the ice was pouring into our home. "I told you," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the haunting melody that filled the space. "I told you there was something beneath the ice." My mother clutched her chest, her face pale as realization dawned upon her. "No, no, this can't be real," she cried, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. But there was no escape. The voices grew louder, an anguished choir that echoed the pain of years of ridicule and rejection. I felt their weight pressing down on me, the burden of knowledge and the horrors I had witnessed in the frozen wasteland. "Cassie, please," my father begged, his voice trembling. "Make it stop." I wanted to, but the truth had a way of unraveling the fabric of reality. The shadows surged forward, wrapping around my family like a shroud. They were no longer just witnesses. They were now part of the darkness I had uncovered. As their screams pierced the air, I realized that this was the cost of disbelief. They had mocked the very thing that now consumed them. The ice had become a mirror, reflecting their scorn, their ignorance, and their fear. In that moment, I felt a bittersweet sense of vindication. I had survived the horrors that lay beneath the ice, faced the darkness that had haunted my dreams. They would now know the truth, but it was too late for them to escape the fate they had invited through their ridicule. When the shadows finally receded, I stood alone in the dim light, the echoes of the ice lingering in the air. I had returned home, but it was no longer a place of warmth or acceptance. The icy grip of the truth had settled into my bones. And the haunting melody of the glaciers would forever accompany me. As I stepped out into the frigid evening, I glanced back at the house, the shadows of my family grim and silent. They had witnessed firsthand what they once deemed insane, and now the weight of their disbelief would haunt them eternally. I walked away, leaving behind a legacy carved from echoes of ice and shadows, a warning that resonated through the cold night, a chilling testament to the price of scorn.